All right, ready to dive in. Today, we're tackling the butterfly effect. You know, that idea that small actions can lead to huge consequences over time. We've got some sources here that take this concept beyond the theoretical.
Yeah, we're going to look at how it plays out in real-life situations, specifically in our relationships and in business.
Okay, so let's start with relationships. One source had this example about, like, a friend forgetting a coffee date. On the surface, no big deal, right?
Right.
But the source goes on to explain how, especially if this kind of thing happens a lot, it can really start to, like, erode the relationship over time, like build up resentment and stuff.
And what's interesting is the source goes deeper than just saying, oh, you need to communicate better. It gives you actual techniques to, catch those little issues before they turn into major blowups. Like noticing when you have a really strong emotional reaction to something small. That's usually a sign that there's something bigger going on underneath.
Oh, yeah, totally. We've all had those moments where we kind of overreact to something, and it's usually because there's, like, some unresolved stuff we haven't dealt with.
Exactly. The source also talks about this technique called active listening, where you're not just waiting for your turn to talk, but really trying to understand the other person's point of view.
Right. That makes a lot of sense.
Helps prevent those little misunderstandings from snowballing into big fights.
For sure, but it's not all doom and gloom, right? The source also talks about how even small positive actions can have, like, a huge positive impact on relationships.
Absolutely. And it actually connects this idea to, believe it or not, the Amway business model. It's all about the power of small actions, whether it's building trust with customers or, motivating your team.
Okay, now I'm intrigued. Tell me more about this Amway connection. What exactly does the source say about their business practices?
So it highlights how Amway really emphasizes building these strong relationships with customers through like consistent, genuine interactions, like things that might seem small, like a handwritten thank you note or remembering a customer's birthday, but they build up over time and create this sense of loyalty and trust.
It's like that saying, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And in a business like Amway, where word of mouth is so important, those personal connections can make all the difference.
Exactly. And the source gives some really interesting examples of how this plays out in practice. Like it mentions how a simple compliment from, say, a leader to a team member can boost morale and lead to, better performance down the line. It's that ripple effect in action, where one small positive action can have this cascading impact.
So it can't all be positive, right? The source mentions negative actions can cause the same ripple effect, just, in the opposite direction.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And it uses a pretty powerful example, actually.
Yeah.
It talks about a situation where a manager, like, kind of brushes off an employee's concern. It seems like a small thing, right? Just kind of ignoring them. But it explains how that can make the employee feel really undervalued.
Yeah.
And that can impact their motivation, their productivity, creates this chain reaction of negativity that hurts the whole team and eventually the business.
What I think is really interesting is that the source doesn't just, like, leave it at that.
Yeah.
It actually gives you advice on how to apply these ideas to any business, even if it's not like Amway.
Yeah, that's a big takeaway here, I think.
Yeah.
It's about realizing every interaction matters. It's not just about these big picture strategies. It's about those day-to-day moments, connecting or disconnecting. Those can have a surprisingly big impact down the road.
So it's almost like a mindset shift.
Yeah.
Like instead of just going through the motions, we need to be more aware of what we're putting out there. Like even those small choices can have big consequences.
Yeah, definitely. And so the source makes clear these choices, however small they seem, can set off this whole chain of events and lead to some pretty remarkable results or disastrous ones.
It makes you wonder, how do we actually put all of this into practice, Like, how do we become more aware of those subtle but powerful cause and effect relationships that are always happening around us?
Well, the source has some ideas about that.
Yeah.
Like it talks about being more self-aware, really in tune with our own emotions, what motivates us, and having empathy, truly understanding what others are going through, their perspective. By developing those things, we can be more mindful of how we're affecting the people around us.
It's like we're all connected in this big web.
Right.
And our actions, no matter how small, they send these vibrations through the web, and those vibrations influence everything.
That's a great way to put it, yeah. And it highlights how much responsibility we have, Because if we understand how this butterfly effect works, we can use it to make positive changes.
It's almost like a superpower, right? Understanding the butterfly effect and being able to create these positive ripples that spread out and affect not just ourselves, but everyone around us.
Yeah, it's a superpower we all have, actually, even if we don't always realize it. And the more aware of it we are, the more deliberate we are in our everyday choices, the more powerful we become.
Okay, so as we start wrapping up this deep dive on the butterfly effect, I'm kind of, I don't know, I'm in awe of how connected everything is. It's like we're all part of this grand symphony of cause and effect, even if we can't always hear the music we're making.
I like that. It's a great analogy. Each of us playing our own part in this orchestra of life. Our actions, whether big or small, they contribute to the harmony or the disharmony of it all.
It's amazing, right? We all kind of get this idea, but actually talking about it, breaking it down like this, makes it feel so much more real, like we can actually do something with it.
Yeah, it's a whole new way of looking at things. Like the sources point out how we tend to focus on the big stuff, the big events in our lives, in business. But really, it's all the little things, all the little choices we make that really add up over time.
It's like building a house, Every brick, every nail seems so small, but you put them all together and you get this strong structure. Or if you make bad choices, maybe you get something that falls apart really easily.
What's cool is if we get this idea, this principle, we can take control. We're not just letting things happen to us. We can create the things we want by paying attention to all those little actions we do every day.
One of the sources had this quote that really stuck with me. It said something like, awareness is the first step to mastery. So it's not enough to just understand the butterfly effect. We have to, really live it, make it part of how we make decisions.
I totally agree. It's about asking ourselves, what kind of impact do I want to have? And then choosing to do the things that actually line up with that. Maybe it's going out of your way to give someone a compliment, or really listening to a friend who's having a tough time, or just choosing to be positive, even when things are hard.
And it's okay if we don't do it perfectly, right? We're all human. We're going to make mistakes. Sometimes we're going to react without thinking and, create some negative ripples.
Right. The important thing is to learn from those mistakes.
Yeah.
Get back on track and keep trying to be the best we can be.
All right. So as we wrap up this deep dive into the butterfly effect, I have a question for everyone listening. Where do you see this playing out in your own life? What are those little things, those small but powerful actions that you can do today to start creating some positive change?
Don't forget, you really can create the life you want. The relationships, the positive impact. It all starts with that one small step.
And with that, we're going to wrap things up. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive, everyone. Until next time, keep those wings flapping, and let's see what amazing things we can create together.